June is here and I've gone through all the June nonfiction releases so that you don't have to. This month we got the first global financial crisis and why it sounds exactly like today. We have the longevity industry exposed as fraud. We have a book about the 19th century moonshot that wired the world. Animal civilizations that would put ours to shame. And the origin story of the culture wars. We also have a history of Roman slavery that will make you think twice about our humanoid robot future. 7 books, 0 fillers, let's go. Hi and welcome to the BookLab, I'm Björn, and the first book is 1873, The Rothschilds, the First Great Depression, and the Making of the Modern World by Liaquat Ahamed, and is out on June the 2nd. This is from the author of the Pulitzer Prize winner, The Lord of Finance, a book that I have heard a lot of good things about, but never really got into reading myself. And now he's back with the story of the first truly global financial crisis. In 1873, a railroad bond bubble crashed the Vienna stock market. Within months, Wall Street followed. The Bank of England was forced to raise interest rates to their highest level in a century. Dozens of railroads and governments defaulted. Sounds familiar? A frenzy of speculation, overinvestment, governments borrowing recklessly, then the bubble pops. The crash of 1873 killed reconstruction in the USA, triggered the slow collapse of the Ottoman Empire, and sparked decades of populist backlash and anti-Semitism across Europe. The Rothschilds, who actually kept a low profile during this bubble, got scapegoated anyway. This is a history book that brings to mind the possible AI bubble that we see today. It reminds me of the concept in Same as Ever. Do I have that book here? No, I don't. Great book, by the way. I have a full review of that one about the cyclical nature of markets. This is a book to watch out for in June. Next book, book 2, Morbid, Debunking Longevity Science by Saul Justin Newland. It's out on June 9th. This book is going to make a lot of people very angry, and I can't wait. Newman is an Oxford research fellow and Nobel Prize winner who decided to take a deeper look at the science behind all the longevity hype, and what he found is hilarious and disturbing. Blue zones, do you remember those? Well, those magical places where people are supposed to live to 100, debunked. The world's oldest people, many of them turned out to be dead. At least on paper, anyway. Pension fraud, birth certificate errors, and sloppy record keeping have inflated the data for decades. The anti-aging industry is built on a foundation of wishful thinking, millionaire money, and outright fraud. That's the claim of this book. It should probably be a quite entertaining read. You can have a laugh at some of the fads that have been going around, longevity, but in the end, I think actually we will have a wave of prolonged life. Longevity will definitely be helped by AI. If we can just break through a few barriers, we can see increased longevity for everyone. So even if some of the things that we believed last 10 years comes out as false, longevity is still very much alive, at least in my opinion. But it's going to be an interesting book if you're into longevity and health stuff. This third book actually really piqued my interest. It's Lighting Beneath the Sea, The Race to Wire the World and the Dawn of the Information Age. It's by James M. Tabor and it's out on June 9th. Before the internet, before the radio, before the telephone, someone had to physically drag a cable across the Atlantic Ocean. This is just mind-boggling. This is the story of Cyrus Field's obsessive quest to lay the first transatlantic telegraph cable. It was the moonshot of the 19th century. And you can just imagine the engineering challenges of this was insane. Cables kept snapping, ships sank, investors pulled out, Field went broke and came back. It took years of disasters, rivalries, visionary stubbornness before the cable finally worked. And when it did, it created the first global communication network and started the information age. I'm just in love with stories like this, and ever since I read, now I'm going to actually find it. Yes, it's actually here and accessible. Oh, there is Same as Ever that I talked about before. Morgan Housel's book, recommended. And another recommended book is, of course, Energy and Civilization, A History. I talked about this book a lot, and it's worth repeating. Valkapsnil's book about the history of energy and how new ways of harnessing energy allows civilizations to go into the next phase. And the same is true with communications, of course. This book is definitely on my radar. Now to the fourth book, The Hidden Nations of Animal, a grand tour of Earth's wild civilizations by Ryan and Huling, and it's out on June the 2nd by Penguin. Humanity doesn't have a monopoly on civilization. This book takes you on a global tour of animal societies that are far more complex than we ever give them credit for. Canadian beaver belt ant armies that wage war across continents, sub-Saharan tunnel complexes, underwater metropolises. This is a more light-hearted book. It's part illustrated and part story, but it's supposed to be entirely perspective changing. A lighter book compared to the other things on the list, but I thought it was worth mentioning. And if you're into big picture thinking about consciousness, complexity, and what differs us humans from the rest of the species here on Earth, it's a book that might be right up your alley. Let's go to the next highlighted book, and it's book number 5, and it's The One and the 99, Forging Identity in the Age of Social Contagion. It's by Luke Burgis, and it's out on June 16. Luke Burgis wrote one of many people's favorite book of recent years, which was Wanting, the Power of Mimetic Desire in Everyday Life. Now he's back, going deeper into the question that his first book opened up. How do you form an authentic identity when everything around you is designed to make you imitate other people? A very poignant question. This is about the crisis of identity in the age of social media. Not just about polarization, but something deeper. We are living in a time of social contagion, where desires, beliefs, even identities spread like viruses through networks. You think you want what you want, but how much of that is actually you? Burgis builds on René Guérand's mimetic theory to explore how tribes form, how belonging becomes a trap, and how to break free and move towards something more genuine. This book sounds heavy, important, and uncomfortably relevant. Definitely one of the more interesting books for June. Now, book number 6. Something completely different, of course. The Perfect Moment. God, Sex, Art, and the Birth of the America's Culture Wars. It's by Isaac Butler, and it's out on June 23rd. Today's culture wars was started with a single photograph in 1988. Isaac Butler, author of the acclaimed The Method, traces the modern culture wars back to a specific event, and that's Patrick Buchanan's steering moral panic over Rupert Mapplethorpe's photographs. What started as an argument about art funding became the template for every culture war battle ever since. This is origin story nonfiction at its best. Understanding where something began helps you understand what it actually is. Butler is provocative without being partisan. He's not telling you which side to pick. He's showing you how the game is set up. If you want to understand why everyone is fighting about everything, then this is a good starting point. The 7th book, Not Built in a Day, How Slavery Made the Roman Empire. This book is by Emma Southon, and it's out on June 30th by Simon & Schuster. I saved this book for last because I found this book the most interesting, and probably not for the reasons that you think. When Julius Caesar conquered Gaul, he bragged about killing 1 million people and enslaving 1 million more. This wasn't a side effect of the empire. This was the business model. Without millions of enslaved people, there couldn't be no Colosseum, no aqueducts, no marble palaces, no underfloor heating. Rome's 1% didn't even tie their own shoelaces, basically. Emma Southon is a Roman historian. Known for her sharp, accessible style, she digs into the invisible labor force that built civilization's most celebrated empire. From the mines and the wheat fields to gladiator arenas and bureaucracies, she traces how people entered slavery, survived it, resisted it, and sometimes escaped it. And the fate of the slaves is very interesting, but one of the things that stood out to me, and what's interesting to me about the history of slavery, is that we are now in 2026. 2027 will be big for humanoid robots. And what will happen to society when we have a labor force that do whatever we tell them to do and only want some cheap electricity in return? That's mind-boggling stuff for me. That's things that change society at its core. And looking back at the slavery systems might gives us a hint what is around the corner. Rome built an empire on coerced non-person labor. We are building one on synthetic non-person labor. We are in for unprecedented times. The future is coming at us at a shocking speed. History might not repeat, but it often rhymes. So it's going to be super interesting to read up on this. And that was my list for this month. This was 7 nonfiction books that really stand out in June, and June turns out that it will be a great month for reading. So I want to take a moment to share some upcoming books because I got a lot of them in the mail recently. I've just started to read The Infinity Machine that was featured here on this very segment, the monthly book releases actually. Then is Hasabi's Deep Mind and the Quest for Superintelligence. This book, I'm only like this far in, and it's just shockingly good. I didn't know about this guy, and this turns out to be just a really riveting, I hate that word, riveting biography. Speaking of biographies, I also started to read Steve Jobs in Exile by Jeffrey Kane. This is about really tough years when Steve Jobs was exiled from Apple. He went on a new endeavor to start a company called Next to develop a different type of computer. And during this period, Steve Jobs met with a lot of failure and challenges that actually shaped him into the Steve Jobs that came back to Apple and made the company just a huge success. So this is how hardship shapes success. It's a great biography so far, and so well written. I just can't put it down. You can find more information about all the books in this list on the website. Sign up for the newsletter where I share hidden gems and more book recommendations every week. It's short and sweet, no fillers. Other than that, let me know what you're reading and which one of these books that you would pick from today's list. Oh, pick of the week, of course. Always forget it. I will pick, and you might have guessed already, Not Built in a Day, How Slavery Made the Roman Empire. That's the pick of the month for me, and I bet I will pick it up probably in a couple of weeks. See you next week with more book reviews, and until then, Björn out. Cheers!